You won't believe this. I bought my dream mountain cabin, only to find an entire family already living inside, claiming it was their ancestral home. Yeah, you heard that right. I walked into my newly purchased property, expecting dust, cobwebs, and maybe a few raccoons, but instead, I was greeted by Karen, the self-proclaimed rightful owner, and her family lounging in my living room like it was a holiday resort. Let me start from the beginning. After years of working long hours as a contractor, I decided I needed peace, somewhere far from city noise, traffic, and HOA meetings. So when a realtor showed me a fixer-upper cabin tucked deep in the Blue Ridge Mountains, I jumped at it. It was old, the kind of place where every plank creaks and the wind hums through the windows, but I saw potential. A small fireplace, a wraparound porch with a killer view, and enough land to build a workshop. I signed the papers, closed the deal, and even got the deed in my name. Simple, right? Well, the day I drove up there with my truck full of tools and renovation plans, I noticed something strange. Smoke, coming from the chimney. At first, I thought maybe a forest ranger was checking the property. But as I pulled into the driveway, I noticed a car, an old minivan with faded family vacation stickers on the back, parked outside. My stomach dropped. I opened the front door, and there they were, a woman in her late 40s, wearing a bathrobe and sipping coffee, a man flipping channels on an old TV, and two teenagers fighting over Wi-Fi. And the woman? She looked right at me and said, "Excuse me, who are you and why are you walking into my house?" For a few seconds, I thought I was dreaming. "Your house," I replied, holding up my purchase papers. "Ma'am, I own this place. I bought it 2 weeks ago." Karen, because that's what she later introduced herself as, just laughed. "That's impossible," she said. "This is my family's mountain home. We've been coming here every summer for decades." I blinked. "You mean you used to come here? The previous owner sold it." Her face hardened. "He didn't have the right to sell our home." That's when her husband chimed in, standing up like some self-appointed mountain sheriff. "Listen, buddy, we've been taking care of this place for years. You can't just show up and kick us out." Now, I'm not the type to argue right away. I took a deep breath and said, "I don't want to cause trouble, but I legally bought this property. You can't stay here." Karen crossed her arms and smirked. "We'll see what the sheriff says." And that's exactly what she did. She called the local sheriff. While we waited, she acted like nothing was wrong, even offered me a cup of coffee like I was the one trespassing. Her kids kept playing video games, and her husband sat back down on the couch, totally relaxed. When the sheriff finally arrived, I handed him the paperwork, the deed, sale contract, and all. Karen pulled out an old photo album. "This house has been in my family since the 70s, she declared, flipping through pictures of her as a kid standing on the porch. "My dad built it himself." The sheriff looked at the papers, then at her, and sighed. "Ma'am, these documents are legitimate. This man's the legal owner." But Karen wasn't having it. "That can't be right. My dad told me it would always be ours. I don't care what the papers say." The sheriff gave her a warning. She had 48 hours to vacate. If she didn't, she'd be removed for trespassing. She stared daggers at me as he left. "You'll regret this," she hissed. I thought that was the end of it. 2 days later, I drove back expecting the place to be empty. But instead, she had doubled down. Karen had hung a big sign on the porch that read, "Private property, family residence. Trespassers will be prosecuted." My property. And not only that, she'd invited more relatives. Her brother's truck was parked next to mine, and they'd put out lawn chairs like it was a family reunion. I confronted her again, showing her the sheriff's warning. But Karen smirked and said, "You might have your city papers, but this land knows our name." That's when I realized she was completely detached from reality. The next week was a nightmare. Every time I called local authorities, Karen would find some loophole to delay her eviction. She'd claim ancestral ownership, squatters' rights, and even emotional inheritance. Meanwhile, I couldn't even start renovations. The family refused to leave, cooked on my stove, and even started using my generator. One night, I caught them roasting marshmallows in my fire pit, the one I'd built. I recorded everything, filed complaints, and even reached out to the local courthouse. But paperwork takes time in a rural county. Then, one morning, I arrived to find something that nearly made my blood boil. They'd changed the locks. Karen's husband had replaced my door hardware, and Karen shouted through the window, "You're not welcome here anymore." I was done. So, I came up with a plan, one that would make them leave without me even touching them. But before I tell you how I did it, you have to understand just how far Karen was willing to go. Because over the next few days, she went from stubborn squatter to criminal liar. And it all started with one call to the county office that exposed her entire story as a scam. When I called the county records office to double-check the sale, the clerk sighed, like she already knew what I was about to say. "Let me guess," she said. "You've got a woman claiming the cabin's been in her family for decades." "Yeah," I replied. "Name's Karen. Her husband and kids are still up there." The clerk chuckled bitterly. "She's pulled that stunt before." That's when I learned the truth. Karen's family used to rent that cabin years ago from the original owner. They'd vacation there every summer, and somewhere along the way, Karen started telling everyone it was her family's property. When the owner passed away, his son sold the place to pay off debts, legally, and with all the right paperwork. Karen just refused to accept it. Armed with that info, I called the sheriff again, this time with a signed statement from the records office. When he and his deputy arrived at the cabin, Karen met them on the porch with folded arms and a look that could melt steel. "Ma'am," the sheriff said calmly, "we've verified the property records. You and your family are trespassing. You need to leave now." Karen launched into one of her legendary tirades. "You don't understand. This land belongs to my family. My father built this house with his bare hands." The deputy pointed at the cabin's record file. "Ma'am, the structure was built in 1988 by a company called Mountain Timber Homes, LLC. Your father's name isn't anywhere on it." That shut her up for about 10 seconds. Then she said something that made everyone blink. "Well, if we can't stay inside, we'll camp outside. This is public land anyway." Except it wasn't. The sheriff sighed again. "Ma'am, even the surrounding property is private. You need to leave all of it." Karen stomped off, muttering something about ungrateful newcomers and city people ruining everything. Her husband tried to negotiate, saying they needed a few more days. But the sheriff wasn't having it this time. They were escorted off the property that afternoon. Finally, I thought, peace at last. But oh no, Karen wasn't finished. A week later, while I was repairing the back porch, I heard shouting. I looked down the driveway, and there she was again, holding a cardboard sign that read, "Stop the land theft. Return Karen's family home." I couldn't help but laugh. She had turned my quiet mountain renovation into a full-blown protest. And somehow, she convinced a few locals, people who had no clue what was going on, to join her. They stood by the road for hours, chanting things like "Justice for Karen" and "Bring back the real owners." At this point, I didn't know whether to call the cops or sell popcorn. But the moment things crossed the line was when I found Karen sneaking around behind my cabin at night, flashlight in hand, trying to recover family belongings. That's when I caught her red-handed, literally pulling tools out of my shed. I stepped out from the shadows, recording with my phone. "Care to explain what you're doing, Karen?" She froze. "These are ours," she stammered. "They were here before you." "Nope," I interrupted. "Bought those last week. And you just trespassed again, while stealing." Her face went pale as the sheriff's truck rolled up the dirt road. He'd seen my call and arrived just in time. That was it. Karen and her husband were officially arrested for trespassing, attempted theft, and property damage, because apparently, before leaving, they'd ripped out my new window screens and poured sand into my generator tank. The sheriff later told me she'd been warned countless times for pulling similar scams, moving into vacant mountain cabins and claiming family ties, until owners gave up or took pity. Some people had even paid her to leave, just to avoid the drama. Not me. After the arrest, I finally got to start restoring my cabin in peace. I fixed the porch, repainted the walls, and even found some of the old rental records that proved Karen's story was complete fiction. But the wildest part? A few months later, A local newspaper ran a story titled Mountain Family's Home Stolen by Outsider, written by none other than Karen herself. She'd somehow convinced a local blog to print her side of the story, painting me as some greedy city guy who used paperwork to steal heritage land. The comment section didn't go the way she hoped. Locals who knew the truth flooded the post with corrections, calling her out. One even uploaded the public property records, showing my name as the legal owner. The post was deleted within a day. Still, that wasn't enough for me. I decided to turn this mess into something positive. I started a YouTube channel documenting the renovation of the cabin, from the busted floors to the new fireplace. I called it Reclaiming the Mountain. The first episode, The Squatter Family Who Claimed My House. It went viral. People couldn't believe it. A full-grown woman trying to steal a house she never owned. The comments were flooded with disbelief, support, and, of course, the occasional joke about Karen's family reunion eviction party. By the end of the series, the cabin was completely transformed. New wood panels, polished floors, and a wide deck overlooking the valley. And the best part? Every time I sit on that porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sun dip behind the ridgeline, I can't help but smile. Because that peace, that silence, that mountain air, I earned it. No fake ancestral claim. No tantrum. No squatter's sign can take that away. As for Karen, last I heard, she tried pulling the same trick on another property 2 towns over. But this time, the sheriff didn't even let her unpack her bags. He just looked her dead in the eye and said, "Ma'am, you might want to try renting. It's a lot less dramatic." And that's how I learned, when you buy your dream home, always expect surprises. Just hope they don't come with a Karen and a protest sign. So yeah, that's how I ended up fighting a full-on squatter family for the home I legally bought. If you enjoyed this wild mountain story, hit that like button, subscribe for more insane real-life dramas, and remember, peace of mind is priceless, especially when you have the deed to prove it.